Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast today with Invenio, a live broadcast where we have two fantastic guests. Now, with this broadcast, we're going to split it into two. So we're going to have some information at the start and some questions at the end. Anybody that's watching this live, please just give us the questions over on LinkedIn Live. Anyone else, if you're watching this on demand, obviously we can't answer them live, but please send it to Invenio, and we will endeavor to answer it. Okay, so the topic of today's show is going to be the role of technology to help supply chains drive predictability and agility in their planning process. Now, don't worry, you don't have to listen to me talking about that. I have two experts. So coming all the way from Invenio, we have Manoj, and from SAP or SAP, we have Klaus. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Would you like to start by introducing yourself? We'll start with you, Manoj. Would you like to introduce yourself and say what you do?
Thanks. So my name is Manoj Narang. I take care of the business development within digital supply chain at Invenio. Invenio is an SAP Gold partner, SAP VAR partner here in UK, and we work very closely with SAP. We've been working very closely with SAP since 2006. Thank you.
And Klaus.
Thanks, Andrew. So Klaus Jensen, I'm based out of Germany. I'm part of SAP's EMEA regional supply chain team, where I focus on business development, customer advisory for anything that has to do with business planning, short, mid, and long term.
Beautiful. Well, it sounds like a marriage made in heaven. It sounds great. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about today? And I believe there's a presentation to go with this.
Yeah. I can actually go through the presentation slides, Andrew, if that's okay, and we can go through what the topic is and what the context is. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay. So can we get the slide up, please? Thank you. So next slide. So what we wanted to discuss today is what is happening today, right? Just weeks after winding down their operations, companies are being asked to restart their engines at an unprecedented rate as lockdown rules are gradually relaxed. The challenge is complicated by uncertainties about the progression of COVID-19 and the social, political, and fiscal actions that it will drive. Reopening requires more than a return to normal because the unpredictable and long-lasting period that follows this pandemic will feature fundamental changes to economic activity, fast-changing cultural norms, societal values, and behaviors. To reopen and to outmaneuver uncertainty, a lot of companies require a program of reinvention. So you talk about supply chain planning or logistics or any other process within your supply chain network, all of them need to be relooked at. They need to be reinvented. But it's not. This is not something that the company should fear, right? This presents an opportunity and a need for many companies to build the competencies that they wish they had invested in before. Companies wanted to be more digital, more data-driven, more in cloud, to have more variable information, to be more flexible in terms of how they plan, make sense of what is happening, right? So this is the right time. This is the right time to be more agile. And this agility will be core to the long-term capabilities that the companies build. What we believe is leaders and supply chain heads should consider the steps they take to reopen as the first in a long journey of wider transformation. We need to understand what should be the steps. So to do that, let's look at what are the challenges that the companies are facing today. Next slide, please. If you see, the competitive landscape is changing quickly. To win, companies need the flexibility and resilience to keep pace with whatever comes next. The implications for supply chain are clear, both its design, and day-to-day management have to be optimized to meet any challenges. The journey from suppliers to at one end to customers at the other has many steps, and along the way there are many number of places where mistakes, delays, unnecessary costs, inefficiencies, poor communication, and missed opportunities can creep in. Now, look at planning, for example. Today, companies are facing challenges with limited visibility into how they can look at the short term decisions that they make or long term decisions from a demand perspective. There is no predictive analytics that we are used to, right? We are still using ad hoc Excel sheets, and these ad hoc Excel sheets are also used for ad hoc collaborations. So there are definitely a number of challenges from a planning perspective that we see. And and what we see is it's not surprising that most of the companies have supply chains that are underperforming, typically leaving a big problem in the margins that they could make, the overall profitability that they could make. Because if you don't understand the demand properly, and if you don't once you've not understood the demand properly, you would not understand how you would be supplying to that demand, from what geography, what would be the gap between the demand and supply, and because of all this, there would be a low productivity, and overall profitability would go down. So, next slide. What we feel, what we see today is the planning priorities are changing, and based on what we see as challenges, we feel that the planning priorities today are, for example, like if you see demand is changing. People are still determining what is the new normal. Some companies have seen sudden spike in demand, and some are struggling to do business due to no demand. It's it's time companies be more flexible in the way that they adapt to these changing demands. So people need to be ready as to what will come next. If there is a second wave around, what will come next? But that brings us to our second priority, where people are identifying opportunities for simulation modeling in the supply chain. So companies actually need to be able to understand and make sense of what is happening, and should be capable to use what if scenarios. So what if the demand falls? What if a certain geography requires certain specific products only? Can I change my demand plan based on that? Can I look at my forecast demand on the basis of simulation models that can also tell me what would be my inventory levels, what would be my demand patterns, what would be the supplier lead times? And the third priority is people need to understand and reshape their demand to fit supply. So if you see, companies today need to be able to review and reconcile their demand and supply, not just once in a while, right? There is a need to do this in real time. Most of the companies today might be doing it quarterly, but there is a need that it happens real time, maybe every day, maybe every week. So people need to review their demand processes, review their supply processes, reconcile between these processes, and then make decisions which are more real time. And all these three put together, companies want to increase their strategic agility. They want to make more profitable decisions. So every scenario brings in an opportunity, and some companies just don't understand that. Some companies just ignore the situation and try and do whatever they were doing before. Some companies react to the situation and try and fight the situation, like COVID-19, in an old-fashioned way, where okay, if the demand has gone up, let me manufacture more. Let me manufacture more until I burn out, until my capacity is burnt out. But there are some logical steps that could be taken to respond. And to do that, companies need to make sense out of what is available. What is the market opportunity? Because every situation brings in an opportunity, and that opportunity could be understood by having the right data available, not siloed approach, everything from one system, one platform, which becomes like a single source of truth. Through that data, the leadership and the management can then make the right decisions, which could help them thrive through the difficult times. Next slide, please. So in all, what we believe is customers want to be more productive so that they could be making more profitable decisions. They want to be more strategic so that they can accelerate their revenue while reducing the working capital. They want to make more strategic decisions. And in the end, they have to be more responsive so that they could actually meet the changing customer demands. They could understand the business opportunities and meet the changing customer demands. So the key is be more productive, more strategic, and more responsive. Now, if you look at the next slide, what we would see is how the overall planning has evolved, how the planning function has evolved over a period of time. We could see today. Yes, a lot of companies are taking data into consideration. Planning is more demand driven, but what supply chain needs is they need to evolve the planning processes to reduce operational silos, respond to market disruptions, mitigate the overall risks which are available, which are there, and then maintain the business continuity. So it's a complete change in dynamic, right? It's not about efficiency anymore. It's more about experience. There is a new paradigm shift where you need automated touchless planning. For example, you need segmented supply chain, you need more collaboration between the planners. You need customer experience to be created, because not every customer is same. Every customer would have a different demand, and you need to create that kind of experience for the customer. So all this needs to be real time as well. So the entire supply chain planning overall needs to get evolved over a period of time. We look at few in our next slides how this could happen, and I'll request Klaus to kind of take us through that and explain how the entire planning process can evolve through what Invenio and SAP has to offer. Thank you. Klaus, over to you.
Thank you very much, Manoj. So if we take a look at sort of what top floor wants, what's really driving organizations, and I hope we're on the right slide. Unfortunately, I don't see them. But if on slide 7, top floor really wants the connected supply chain. However, many organizations are still organized in departmental silos, where planning is sort of, nice idea, reality is different. So we're going to change the plan. So what we're seeing, to Manoj's point from before about that value chain view, that segmented supply chain, is really that the plan becomes the glue of your supply chain. The plan is informed about the customer experience. That's at the center of what we're doing. Understand what new products are we launching, what changes are coming, what's going on the manufacturing level, how are we performing, and feed plans into manufacturing that are feasible plans, not wishful thinking. And this goes through all the way through my distribution, how do I operate if I have an after sales service business as well. All of this comes together across the network, thereby really providing the basis for automation, visibility, and agility for when changes happen. I can quickly identify what's going on. So let's take a deeper dive into what this means on the next slide, where we're talking about the digital business planning. And this is really about connecting that strategic, tactical, and operational level, so everything is aligned and informed, educated about ambitions and capabilities. And the way we do that, you can say there are a couple of integration layers. One is what we're seeing here. We need to focus on, where's my market heading? What does the customer base want? Point 1. Point 2, how's my product portfolio performing? And point 3, are there any technological shifts out in the market that I need to be aware of? Once I get that view of what's going on in my marketplace, I can drive a plan that's continuously aligned. Before joining SAP, I spent 13 years in industry, had a real job where we produced and moved tangible goods. And planning between these different functions we see here tended to be like a dysfunctional family get together. Everybody was screaming and shouting at each other. What we want to get to is on a common view of where the market is heading in the short, mid, and long term. That's the second integration layer, is getting a plan across all of these different things. So I understand that commercials want to sell as many units as possible. that's going to have an impact on the capacity I have in my operations. And that's going to have an impact on the revenue and cost that finance is looking at. Getting that multifaceted view together, allowing us to understand the impact across this, we can come up with a plan. And very important, that plan we need to be able to execute upon. Otherwise, we are just talking wishful thinking. The beautiful thing here is once the plan is also being executed upon, I can drive visibility and thereby, to Manoj's point from before, quickly identify where new risks are popping up, plan is going off the rails, or opportunities to come, and run real-time scenarios to see what are our options. This is what a digital business planning is about. Focus on the market, aligned across functions, being able to plan and respond to any changes through that integration to execution and end-to-end visibility. So why is it that people and organizations are going for this? If we go to the next slide, we'll take a look at some of the really tangible benefits we're seeing here. Not going to read them all out. You'll get this afterwards. But by understanding where the market is heading, we can do a lot on revenue, getting the right products to the right market in the right quantities. We can really look at operating costs, driving that down. We can start understanding what's the interlinkage between long production runs, how that leads to bigger inventory levels due to the longer time between I can change the production run. At the same time, it also looks at how do we drive the best utilization of our working capital, identify where is it tied up and it's not really working, and get that back to working for our ambitions. So some really hard tangible benefits here that companies are achieving today by having integrated business planning. And to take it a step deeper, if we go to the next slide, this is based on SAP's performance benchmarking, a service we're offering free of charge. You'll sign up and enter some KPIs and allows you to benchmark your performance against a reference group of geographically relevant peers, industry, company size, what have you, to really see how do you perform. And what we are seeing, there's a massive difference in performance between average and top performers across all the things I was talking about before. So these are the types of benefits we're seeing organizations that adopt an integrated business planning process, mindset, and technology drives. With that, I just want to go to the next slide and say, so what does this technology do? So the whole plan and respond with our solution. Point one, it's a highly modular platform. Consists of a set of capability packs. I don't even want to call them modules because they all sit on the same data set. So my demand data is immediately translated to my supply view, my financial view, that can drive alerts. It can help me set the right inventory service levels, the right inventory safety levels dynamically and continuously. And all of this across those three horizons: the strategic, the tactical, and operational. And as we go through this, we can then start looking at where, as I mature my operations, as I mature my organization, can I start automating? To Manoj's point of touchless supply chain management. With that, back to you, Manoj. How do we get there?
Thanks. So what we see is, yes, Klaus mentioned that this product or solution can actually work at all three levels: operational, tactical, and strategic. And if you just go back to that slide again, what we wanted to see was there is the demand side of it that we look at. There is the inventory and the response and supply side of it. Demand, where we actually look at the forecasting, the statistical forecasting, the consensus demand. Inventory, where we are looking at what is the right inventory level that should be available, how can we make it more profitable for us, how can we optimize the cost for inventory. And the last is where we look at unconstrained and constrained supply chain planning problems, and how can we overcome these constraints and plan properly. But the backbone of all of these three is sales and operations planning. Sales and operations planning basically covers aspects of demand, supply, and inventory, all three, but it kind of at the technical level helps in reviewing how the demand should be, reviewing how the supply should be. Can I reconcile? Can I do some analytics? Can I look at the dashboards and make real-time decisions, to all the points that we spoke about? And what we believe is we need to first go ahead and make use and get value out of this backbone, because once we do that, we will be on our journey to achieve what we want to achieve from our planning processes. And what Invenio has done is, on the next slide, what you would see, what Invenio has done is has put together a quick 90 days go live kind of a package together, which covers all the major processes of demand, supply, and the sales and operations planning, where you could gather the right data, make sure that you have the right information, the forecasting is in the right place, create the plan, demand plan, and then at the same time do your supply planning review with the characters, check the capacity issues, how could you optimize your planning. But while you're doing all this, you have the dashboards, which could give you reviews, which could give you the management level reviews, which could help you reconcile, which could help you make decisions on the fly through heat maps, through graphical charts, which could be easily configurable by users themselves. And all of this can be achieved within 90 days, where if you were to face the second wave of the global pandemic, you would be ready to make what if scenarios. You could actually say that, okay, fine, what if tomorrow my demand goes up for a food and beverage industry customer? For example, if the demand has to go up, you could actually create a what if scenario where you could say that, okay, fine, what if tomorrow my demand goes up for a certain product? What should be my supply look like? What would be my supply look like? What would be the potential constraints that I might face? What would be the problems that could be there in terms of raw materials or the suppliers? And that's where you would start making real decisions to be ready with whatever comes next. I'm sure, Klaus, you would second this, that these are the right steps to go ahead and make certain better decisions in terms of how you could have more flexible and agile planning. Yeah.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. It takes a lot of debating about the data set out of it, and it touches upon bringing commercial and supply together across various horizons at the right granularity level.
And the fact that it takes away all the disparate data sources as well. All your data then sits into one system, and so the point that we were talking about earlier was the single source of truth. So if a supply chain director is sitting somewhere in his home because of an issue, he's not able to go outside right now, through his mobile phone he can actually look at what is happening because everything is sitting in one system, which is accessible through any device at any time, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's what we wanted to convey, that yes, there are some planning challenges that we see today. There are a number of initiatives a lot of customers are taking today. We are talking to a number of customers, whether it is pharmaceutical industries, logistics, or consumer products. Every customer wants to reinvent, wants to relook at how their planning processes work. And while they are doing that, they need support in making sure that they are able to achieve what they want to achieve. What we are trying to say is, yes, all of this can be achieved, but what we need is a change of mindset and the right approach. We need to take the right steps so that we can achieve the right planning strategy, more profitable decisions, and basically reducing the operational level cost. The last slide basically talks about Invenio. A very quick quick introduction about Invenio. We are a UK headquartered organization based out of Reading. We focus only on SAP, do nothing outside of SAP. Within SAP, we focus on certain verticals, supply chain being one of them, where we have good industry experts, and we work with all of our customers with support from SAP. There are a number of subject matter experts and solution architects from SAP who support us when we work with our customers. That's it from me. Klaus, do you want to add anything?
No, what I would want to add is SAP is strong on a strong ecosystem. Our partners Invenio brings a whole heap of experience, industry-specific, solution-specific, that enables us to much better meet the individual requirements of SAP customers and current and future customers.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's it. Andrew, do you want to open for questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was fantastic. So yeah, thank you for everybody that's watching live. People are watching. I've had my producers give me some questions. However, I'm going to put you all on the spot because I have a question. So one of the things that came up in your presentation, you spoke about a second wave, and of course, the thing with the pandemic was that a lot of companies had very little notice. Suddenly, there was lockdown in various different countries. How essential were these systems to keep those companies going? I mean, what did you see? You must have seen it almost from the front line.
Yeah. Do you want to take that, Klaus?
Sure. So we have seen a number of companies using SAP IBP to quickly run various scenarios. All of a sudden, what does it mean that I cannot get my supplies from a certain part of the world because there's a lockdown going on there? What does it mean if I have to shut down certain parts of my inventories? How can I adapt to that and quickly run a scenario to change that? So they are taking action, getting ahead of things, and thereby can identify what routes of options do they have, what can they do and what can't they do, and start making informed decisions. Then we've seen a lot of other companies that have not had this capability, and that have been both companies where demand has broken away, and it's been companies where demand has spiked massively, and they have fallen into a super reactive environment where it's just like, oh, what do we do? There is not enough demand. We have all this capacity. What do we do? We must come up with something short term, not necessarily understanding what's the impact across the whole supply chain. Yep. The other companies also had a spike. They're just trying to get as much out as possible without taking into consideration, is it the right things we're getting out in the right quantities to the right destinations, or should we start looking at, is this the future and how do we set up for that? So companies in both, you could say it's a 2x2 matrix. They're the ones that demand's broken away, the ones where it spiked. There's the one that's been reactive, and they're the ones that have taken something like an SAP IBP solution to really learn from this, get ahead of things, and understanding what can I do with that.
Yeah, and just to add, like I'll give you a live example as well, right? We were talking to one of the bread manufacturing companies here in UK, without naming them. Due to lockdown, like Klaus mentioned, they saw a sudden spike in their demand. Like all of a sudden, you would see people sitting at home and consuming a lot of breads, so they had to manufacture more loaves of bread. Now, the challenge was for them not just manufacturing, right? Like Klaus touched upon, raw material, for example, because they import wheat flour from some other country. The packaging would come from another country as well. All of that is on one side, right? If they have to continue to manufacture, they need PPE kit as well. So we saw healthcare workers were struggling to get PPE kit, and then yes, there is this manufacturing company who has to continue to manufacture, and they need PPE kit as well. So planning is not just to the core product that you're looking at. There is a demand spike. You have a capacity issue because you might be able to only produce a certain amount of bread loaves. But if the demand has gone up, how can you stretch? How can you stretch, right? Till what extent you can produce? What raw material you would require? And that's not just today. It is next 2 months, 3 months. If there is a second wave, we spoke about second wave, so that if there is a second wave, how should I be ready? And it's just not COVID-19. Take an example of Brexit. What happens with Brexit tomorrow? If companies have to plan if their raw material is coming from elsewhere outside of UK, from other European countries, they'll have to plan in advance. So consider any situation, companies need this kind of technology to support them in making the right decisions, because there is a lot of uncertainty around everything that is happening today anyways.
Yeah, it's so pertinent for the time. It really has come into the forefront. With that in mind, okay, so I've been watching this, and I say, it's one of the questions I've said, Manoj, Invenio, you've been speaking about all these things. We want to get this up and running, but here's my question: what are the key criterias that you would need for a successful integrated business planning project?
What I feel is, first and foremost, you need to have a change in mindset. Actually, the customer needs to have a change in mindset as to what they are going to achieve, right? So a lot of customers that we are speaking to today are doing certain things in a certain way, and they don't want to change. So it requires a change. Like we saw all of that, right? It's a paradigm shift. It's a shift in the way you do things. Yes, when you speak to the customers, they say, yes, we make demand-driven decisions. So how else we are making decisions? We are making demand-driven decisions. But are these decisions contributing to the right profitability? So we need to understand, and those simulations, those parameters that Klaus spoke about, if we can help them understand as to which areas we can bring in improvements, that's where we need to first start. We need to understand how can we bring in improvements, whether the improvements can be in the area of data sources. So if a customer is working on multiple Excel spreadsheets, what is the challenge there? So it all starts at change in mindsets, understanding the challenges, understanding the end objective, what you want to achieve in the next 1 year, what should be your revenue growth, because anything that you want to invest today should contribute towards something, right? Either it should be revenue growth, either it should be in terms of efficiency. So we need to understand what are those objectives, and then try and provide a solution which works specifically to achieve those objectives. I don't know, Klaus, if you want to add to that, but
I think I just want to add maybe one point. I think it's important to understand these because it is indeed a business transformation. It's letting go of the past and being willing to try something new. Those things are never a grassroots movement that comes up. You need strong top management, ownership and sponsorship of these kind of transitions. Otherwise, it regresses back into let's just do what we've always done with a new tool set.
So the next question I've had, it's a really interesting one. I think I know what this is about. Correct me, but when we speak to people about like big data and all of these things, they always ask this question, and I think it's really important. So the question is, what levels of master data cleanliness do I need to get started?
I think that there's a couple of aspects to it. The cleaner master data you have, the smoother the process can run. That's all stating the obvious. The reality is, I still have to find that one company that says our master data is just perfect, nothing to improve there. What a project like this helps you do, once you start integrating the various source and target systems in the process, you start identifying where is master data cleanliness an issue. And then you can take that as part of the project and saying, we're doing an initial master data cleansing exercise as part of the project. And I see that about just about any project I've been involved with, that there was a significant amount of time involved around master data. But it's not that you need to have absolutely perfect master data. That is something you improve as you go along. As with getting the process maturity is something you learn as you go along. So if you feel we don't have good master data today, this is probably something you should be looking at, an IBP project, because that is typically something we hear from customers. We cannot plan across all our different divisions, plans, different IT systems, Excel, SAP systems, non-SAP systems. How do we get that all together? And that's where the integrated comes into play. We bring all that in together.
Okay, excellent. Well, so the next question, which size companies are IBP modules relevant for?
I think any size company, sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, Klaus, but I think any size company. So if you're a small enterprise or a large enterprise, planning is what you need, and you need the right planning, actually. So irrespective of the size of the organization, I think IBP fits well with every organization. In fact, IBP also, just to add, IBP works with any backend ERP as well. So it not necessarily be SAP only. It can be any any ERP system, any other data source. So it's basically going to pick data sources and then help you plan properly. So yeah, any size of company, any ERP system backend, this could work.
A colleague of mine put it very succinctly. Any company that produces or moves products of any type needs IBP.
Makes sense.
There you go. You heard it here first. Yeah. Perfect. So, okay. Again, really interesting during this lockdown. I spoke to a lot of companies that were implementing various systems, and they said, "Oh, we'd always planned to do X, Y, Z, but we'd never quite got around to it. And now is the time we've started to do it, either out of because they've got time, or maybe sometimes because of necessity." You gave the example of the bread manufacturer who had the system in place and it suddenly needed that rise in demand and needed a system to run with it. So I suppose the next question, elaborating on a question that we received, how quickly can you actually get started with the solution?
Immediately. we spoke. So there are two things. One is the readiness for the business, and one is the readiness of a partner and the technology provider. So the product is a cloud-based product, and Klaus can add to that. It's a cloud-based product, and it receives periodic upgrades. So it's always up-to-date product that the customer gets. So if we have to implement today, yes, there is the latest product available. From a partner perspective, we spoke about the package solution. Why we have developed these package solution around IBP is because we want to give value to the customer immediately as well. We don't want the customers to wait for 9 months, 12 months to get anything out of their investment, because we understand the times are difficult. If the customers are investing anything, they want quick value as well. So that's why we have developed these packages which are available. Now, if you look at the package that we spoke about, the 90 days go live package for sales and operations planning, we can actually turn around and give a demonstration on that package tomorrow. We can actually turn around and give a proposal on the package tomorrow as well. It's then about how the business is ready to make a decision. So if you have to ask when can we start, we could actually start tomorrow. But usually what we see is it takes around 15 to 20 days to go through the business validation workshops, to understand the challenges, gather requirements, create that scope of work document, and then kind of kick off. But yeah, I think that's the typical from the first introduction to the time that the SOW or the scope of work is constructed. It takes around 15 to 20 days, but not more than that. And then in 90 days, you can go live and start getting value. So if you ask, in year one itself, the customers would get value out of it.
Oh, that's perfect.
I can only confirm that. We've seen many projects that's up and running with the first iteration within 3-4 months. We're not talking, as Manoj says, long gone are the days where it's 12 to 18 months before we start seeing any use of it. We're talking months here. Single-digit number of months.
That's perfect. One of the questions that came in from LinkedIn was asking about the 90 days, so I'm hoping that we answered that question as well. Perfect. Okay, well, we've gone way over time, but I'm quite happy to keep going because I'm enjoying this. I'm going to ask a couple more questions. So let me go through the list. How easy or difficult is IBP, because this is an important one, how easy or difficult is it to integrate with ERP? We've got a lot of acronyms going there.
Yeah, so like I said before, it can be easily, so there are ready adapters, right, which can be used. So like I said, any backend system, any ERP, whether it's SAP or any other third-party companies, there are ready adapters through which we can integrate IBP to these systems. So like I said, like we said, right, 3 months go live, integrated with an ERP system. So it can be easily integrated is what I would want to say.
We see people integrated with any type of system. It's not just SAP systems. It's all of the other ones out there, because that's one of the plan, right? We want to have as much data that's relevant and get that in to the planning process. So that is echoing Manoj's point. I think one of the biggest challenges people have is defining the data that they need for planning purposes, and not necessarily the data that they think they need, because people tend to become a little bit like little kids. I want all the data in there. Is it all relevant? Probably not. But you should definitely have the relevant data in your planning process. And that's, again, something that will evolve over time, where you learn more and more about what data do you really need.
Beautiful. Okay, so as we've run over time, I'm going to start with the quick fire questions. So you're going to have to keep on your feet now. They're going to come thick and fast. So how can customers upgrade the product at a later date?
They don't, we do it for them. So cloud solution, every quarter, new release with support as to what's new functions, features, hand-holding from our customer engagement executive organization. So it's built into the solution. We do it for you.
Okay, beautiful. This question, I'll let one of you take this. How is SAP rated against your competition for planning solutions?
I would want Klaus to answer this question, but what I've seen is it is rated as per Gartner's Magic Quadrant. It is rated up there, and I think one of the top 3 products available there. But Klaus, yeah, sorry, go on.
So absolutely, we are in the leaders quadrant of Gartner's. We are in the leaders segment of IDC and all of these things. What's more important is we are across all the different aspects. So we are across the demand planning functions. We are about the inventory planning functions, and we are for the supply planning functions. And I think that's a very unique position to be in the leaders quadrants across all of that with one integrated solution.
I don't think so. There is any other product giving everything, Klaus, is it?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, that's what I thought. There is no other competitive product which covers all the aspects which we spoke about: demand, supply, inventory, sales and operations, analytics on top of that. No, I haven't seen any other product doing that.
Great answer. We're going to talk a question about verticals here. Does SAP have reference customers in most of the sectors? I suppose that's quite an important question.
Short one, yes.
Good. Okay.
We have reference customers across, I think it's 25 different industry.
Yep.
Sectors, yeah.
Beautiful. What are the deployment options?
One, cloud-based.
It's
a cloud-based solution with 2 little remarks to that. One, it's a private cloud instance, so it's not a public tenant setup. So that means your data is on a server we maintain for you. Your competitor or your business partner has their own dedicated server. So that's one thing. The second thing is you choose in which data center you want it to be hosted. So we have hosting options across the globe, and you decide where do you want your data to reside.
Great. I've got one final question. Unfortunately, this one has acronyms in it, so you might have to decipher it for me. But if I choose IBP for S and OP, that must be SAP, and use something else for demand planning, how would that work?
So I think that would work, but sorry, go on, Klaus.
Let me decipher the alphabet soup. IBP is the solution integrated business planning. S&OP is sales and operations planning, which is part of it's a process that is evolving towards integrated business planning.
But yeah, to answer that question, someone can use sales and operations planning within IBP and demand planning sitting outside of it. It can all be integrated within one system. But again, like we said, sales and operations planning is the backbone for everything else. So that could definitely sit on IBP. And if someone wants to do demand planning elsewhere, that's fine as well.
I like to say sales and operations planning is the big translator. It basically, we speak different languages, although the corporate language might be English. We just think differently depending on the silos we're in, right? And S&OP does that translation from commercial speak to supply chain speak to financial speak. It's built into it. So, and then pulling in the relevant data sources as needed.
I think that's what companies need at the moment is simplicity, rolling
Absolutely.
out systems that will just work. We just need to get on with things. A lot of things have changed.
I think you bring it to the point there, Andrew. It's really about getting away from chasing data, analyzing data, but getting the right data presented as and when it's required, and making informed decisions, looking ahead based on that data set.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for your time today. You've been absolutely fantastic in answering those questions. For anybody that's watching and we didn't get a chance to answer your questions, please just let Manoj and Klaus or Invenio know if you have any questions, and I'm sure they will answer it. You can still comment in the comments section below, or just keep them coming. But that was Manoj and Klaus from Invenio and SAP, respectively. This has been a broadcast on the role of technology to help supply chains drive to predictability and agility in their planning process. We hope that you enjoyed the broadcast, and until next time, I'll see you soon.